smile with the rising sun. Three little birds pitch by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody clear and true, singing, this is my message to you. Tell you don't worry about the thing. Every little thing gonna be alright. Don't worry about the thing. Every little thing gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds pass by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melody and true. This is my message. Tell you don't worry about the thing. Every little thing gonna be alright. Don't worry about the thing. Every little thing. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. Three little birds pass by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, a melody clear and true, singing, this is my message. Tell you don't worry about the thing. Don't worry about the thing. Every little thing gonna be alright. Tell you don't worry about the thing. Every little thing gonna be alright. Tell you don't worry about the thing. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Preacher man, don't tell me heaven is under the earth. I don't know what you know. Life is really worth. It's not all that glitters gold. Half the stories have never been told. So now you see the light. Stand up for your right. Just get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. up for your right. Get up, stand up for your right. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a beautiful Saturday morning. I'm sorry to hear about New York, Charmaine, but it's a beautiful Saturday morning nonetheless because we're all together celebrating this day. I'm Matthew Palomino. I am the youth director of the Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association. Welcome to our Black History Month reception. Just a quick word about our virtual Black Marketplace. You may have heard of it, Ujamaa Black Marketplace. It is a foundational place for social enterprise that is intended to unite the African Canadian community around the goal of economic development through cooperative economics, with the ultimate aim of building up the next generation of young entrepreneurs by giving them access to resources and a wealth of expertise. I would just like to thank the brilliant Enchanting Steelpan, featuring Toronto's finest, such as Andy Phillips, Gareth Burgess and Mark Moscow, with their interpretations of pop and R&B with a fantastic island flair, as we've just witnessed. Just some brief housekeeping. This webinar is recorded, as it may have informed you when you came into the room. It is now my pleasure to introduce Elder Lee Miller, who is the Executive Director of the York Region Alliance of African Canadian Communities. He's responsible for the Sankova Mentoring Program. Lee Miller is an elder in the Black community. He will be performing our libation ceremony, which is a ritual of pouring liquid to honor the past, fetching it to the future to better amplify the voice of our community. Lee Miller.
Good morning to everyone. It's a beautiful day to celebrate Black History Month. I looked at the audience and I see the names and I see diversity within the Newmarket community and beyond. I would say that diversity is beautiful. You look at the sunset and you look at the sunrise, it's two different colors. However, when it comes to unity, there are no diversity. It's my pleasure to be here to pour libation. Libation is something that across the continent of Africa, it's done before most meetings begins. Within this ritual, we first honor the Creator. We also honor the elemental spirits, and last but not least, we honor the ancestors. We become ancestors according to the African tradition. Not everyone that passed away, not everyone that transitioned become a part of ancestors. Just like in the West, we will talk about angels. Ancestors are like angels to us. They are the one who carry us on their shoulders to the social justice. They are the one, deep blood is in our DNA, so that we can continue those things. So I recognize people like Sidney Poitier. They are the folks calling forward to members who have transitioned and are now ancestors. Creator Divine, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the people that have joined us inspire them so that we can become unified, although we are diversified. I thank you, Creator, for all this, for all the glory. Mother Earth, we honor you. You continue to feed us, to sustain us, although we abuse you. Will you continue to feed us? I say thank you, Mother Earth, for the elemental springs, such as the plants, the wood, the breath that we take. I say thank you. Again, I say ancestors. You, many of you right now are Atlantic Ocean. Many of you have been abused, just like Mother Earth. But you stay strong, just like Mother Earth. I say thank you. I say let me pour to dummy laws. Marcus Garvey, Nada the Maroons, Viola Desmond, Rosemary Brown, Gerarda Hall, Maya Angelou. I say ancestors, continue to rise. Let's drink. Say give thanks. Insa, Ashe, Amen. God bless you all. Thank you.
So much, Lee Miller, for that wonderful libation ceremony. I feel nourished and refreshed and ready to really plow into this Black History Month. Next, I believe it is my honor to introduce the chair of the Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association, Jerisha Grant Hall. Jerisha.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you so much, Matthew, for that introduction. And thank you, Lee Miller, for the libation. I know it was tricky for everyone to hear. I think there was some technical difficulties. That happens sometimes with online. But I do hope that we were able to hear some of what our elderly had to share. Welcome to our 4th annual Black History Month reception. As the chairperson of the Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association, I'd like to thank you all on behalf of our executive team for joining us to honor Black history, Black-owned businesses, Black achievements, Black pride, Black hope, Black determination, Black futures in our community. I'd like to give a special welcome. I see folks joining us from all over our community in Newmarket and beyond. I want to say welcome to our NACA community and communities outside of Newmarket. I see our allies here, our donors and sponsors. Mayor John Taylor is here with us, as well as our Deputy Mayor Tom Vague, members of Newmarket Council, Bob Quapis, Christina Pisans, Grace Simon, Kelly Broom, Victor Woodhouse, Trevor Morrison, as well as members of the town of East Gwillimbury, members of council, Tara and Laura Lee Carruthers, who you will hear from later on. She's our keynote speaker. Also representatives from the Government of Canada, our Member of Parliament, MP Van Bynen, should be here as well. I do see representatives from York Regional Police. Our Chief Max Sween is in the building. Deputy Da Silva, Deputy Chief Da Silva is here. Deputy Rouse, I believe, is also here. And I believe MPP Elliott's office has representation from Don Gallagher Murphy. And we also have representation from local and regional organizations and agencies. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So over the past few days leading up to February 1st, we've had a burst of interest from mainstream media regarding the activities planned for Black History Month. Each reporter wanted to know whether George Floyd's murder played a role in NACA's formation. And for the most part, they viewed Black history through the window of the past 2 years. Repeatedly, we found ourselves reminding each kind and well-intentioned interviewer that systemic injustices have been with us since ancient times, and that Black Canadians all around us carried the lived experiences of unfair practices, policies, and legislation. These conversations cemented for us the need for ongoing learning, not just about structural oppression, but also about Black resistance and resilience. Without a doubt, people of African heritage have excelled greatly, even in the face of significant inequities, oppression, and adversity. We have produced many talented people who have represented Canada honorably in the arts, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, on the battlefield, and in sports and events internationally. We are innovators and inventors who've changed the world. We are entrepreneurs and business owners. The broader community needs to see a history of Canada that includes all the experiences that shape our society, including Black Canadian experiences, with roots dating back to over 400 years ago and over 200 years in East Gwillimbury. What we have seen over the last 2 years that we've never seen before is a global and institutional move to a diversity, equity, inclusion reset and widespread use of the term anti-Black racism, but no real sense of urgency for change. We witness the world standing up in outrage, examining the foundations of its very economic, political, cultural, and social structures, and making various commitments to address systemic injustices. To some extent, there has been a collective movement across intersections of age, gender, class, race, and culture. All of this is happening during the United Nations Declaration of the Decade for People of African Descent, 2015 to 2024. We are coming into an understanding that nearly 200 million people identifying themselves as being of African descent live in the Americas, and millions more live in other parts of the world outside of the African continent. So now, after the outrage, what's next? That's the question we're asking this Black History Month. What's next? Dismantling anti-Black racism and racism requires allyship. Some may choose other language. I've heard folks using co-conspirator or disruptor, or whatever the next new word is. Like Marcus Garvey, we care less about the word and more about the action towards full emancipation. We want to create tangible change through a shifting of minds, through a shifting of cultures, organizational cultures, corporate cultures, dismantling policies, procedures, practices that relegate African Canadians to the fringes of society, any society, whether in education, healthcare, housing, or employment. This year's theme, Harnessing Allyship and Leadership, is not meant to be a feel-good story that we tell ourselves. Instead, it is really meant to challenge us to listen and make targeted moves to uproot the structures that have allowed institutional oppression to survive and thrive for so long. Anti-racism work requires bold leadership. Yes, bold leadership and allyship. And the time is now to get up, stand up for meaningful and lasting change. It requires accountability and a budget. Yes, a budget. Allyship and leadership should signal to us an understanding that there is space for everyone to contribute to building equitable communities. We have a collective responsibility to eliminate disparities. Active allyship, which is long-standing commitment to changing systems that disadvantage groups, is key and core to the work that NACA looks to do, to honor the struggles of our ancestors while rising together in our community to build for the future. It speaks to our mission, a group of like-minded individuals who are committed to sharing and celebrating our stories, the stories that form the foundation of our collective history. Our vision to be a community that is strong and connected, where Black youth are connected to their past while firmly stepping into their future. Like throughout the year, today, we find ways to come together with our community, to build bridges that promote intercultural understanding, create opportunities for our community to engage and support a sense of belonging, and to seek opportunities for positive interaction that fosters pride in Black history, culture, and identity. As we work on building community, we embrace the knowledge of our past and use it as a pillar of strength to push us forward. I'd like to take a moment to thank our NACA team and Black History Month Planning Committee, chaired by Pauline Jones, whose brilliance and vision informs everything you'll witness today. I'd like to acknowledge Lena Singh, chair of the Town of East Bolingbro's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, who has given of her time and supported the planning committee to expand its reach in the community. We would also like to thank our partner, the Town of Newmarket, for their collaboration and commitment to moving us forward. Thanks especially to Colin Service, Director of Recreation and Culture Department, for his leadership and allyship since NACA's inception. Fadad Atin and Amanda Lee for their technical expertise and for hosting today's event. Finally, thank you to all of you, community members, NACA members, allies, for joining us, and we hope that you will continue to support and stand with us in this journey. Over to you, Matthew.
Thank you so much, Dorisha. That was wonderful. I would now like to introduce all of you to our Vice Chair, Janice Luttrell, with the land acknowledgement.
Good morning, everyone. It's my honor to deliver the land acknowledgement for you today. Before we go further, I want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples. I also acknowledge that we convene upon the treaty lands of the First Nations of the Williams Treaty and the Chippewas Georgina Island First Nation as our closest community. We also acknowledge that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as immigrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. We must also recognize the fact that this colonial nation is founded in historic and ongoing dispossession of this land's indigenous peoples and African descendant peoples. Today, we especially pay tribute to the ancestors of those African and indigenous origin and descent. As an organization that centers on social justice, we feel it is critical to be informed on the past and the ongoing consequences of colonialism. We encourage everyone to learn about the history of these lands and to support resistance here and across Turtle Island. We give thanks for the land that nourishes us and enables us to live in communities. May we continue to aspire to nurture and care for this land and for each other.
Thank you so much for that, Janice. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of Toronto's most sought after vocalists, Keisha Wynn, to perform the Canadian National Anthem and the Black Anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land. True patriot love in all of us command. Caton brasse porte les paye, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep a land, oh, glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought. the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy eye led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Rest our feet straight from the places, oh God, where we led thee. Lest our hearts, drunk of the wine from the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
Yes, let us march on to victory. Every step is one step closer upon that journey to victory. Thank you so much, Keisha. It is now my pleasure to introduce our dignitaries, MP Van Bynen representing the federal government, our distinguished Deputy Premier and MPP, local MPP Christine Elliott, bringing greetings on behalf of the province, the Mayor of Newmarket, John Taylor, and our distinguished Chief of the York Regional Police, Jim McSween.
Hello everyone, I am Tony Van Bynen, the Member of Parliament for Newmarket Aurora, and it is my pleasure to bring greetings to the annual Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association's delivery of Black History Month celebrations. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I am on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, whose presence here continues to this day. And after many months of virtual gatherings, I'd hoped to be able to join this ceremony live and in person, but I'm glad to see our community is still able to come together in celebration of Black History Month. Throughout the last 2 years, we have seen how COVID-19 has created barriers for our Black and racialized communities across Newmarket Aurora and indeed across Canada. We continue to see the inequities in our political, economic, and social structures across Canada. And as a member of the government's Black Caucus, I have learned how ingrained and subtle systemic racism is through hearing the lived experiences of my colleagues about microaggressions and direct aggressive behaviors. These are difficult conversations that we must continue to have, and we must continue to take deliberate steps to combat these inequities at all levels. And I'm happy to see how the town of Newmarket has supported NACA at the local level. And I continue to make my office available to support you as well through any federal programs that can assist you. Thank you to the organizers, Jerusha and the team at NACA, for their efforts and commitment to support our Black community and for coordinating this event while continuing to follow public health guidelines. In future celebrations, I look forward to once again gathering live and in person to join you all in celebration of Black History Month.
Hello everyone, I'm Christine Elliott, your Member of Provincial Parliament for Newmarket Aurora. Black History Month is a time to celebrate and honor the legacy of Black Canadians, both past and present. The Black community in Newmarket is rich in talent and spirit. From musicians to artists, to writers to community leaders, today's event highlights just a small portion of the talent in our Newmarket community. I am so pleased that our community will be able to experience and celebrate that talent with this special reception. This year's theme is Get Up, Stand Up. There is power in unity. As your MPP, I'm here to work with you to ensure a diverse and inclusive community. I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to the Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association for your commitment and ongoing efforts to build a strong and connected community. Thank you for hosting this wonderful event and for helping to shape a more inclusive Newmarket. I hope everyone enjoys today's reception.
Hi everybody, Mayor John Taylor here, and it's a pleasure to be joining you at the virtual reception for Black History Month in the town of Newmarket. I want to start by thanking NACA for the hard work they have done to elevate Black History Month over the last number of years in the town of Newmarket. I believe it is a more meaningful, Black-led, community-engaged event than it had ever been before, and the credit goes to NACA and of course our staff who support them in this month. The theme for this year is harnessing allyship and leadership. And that is exactly what NACA has done. NACA has reached out and identified and cultivated allies in the community and worked with them and harnessed the potential that they bring to end anti-Black racism and to enrich the lives and the experiences of Black people in our community. The leadership portion is obviously important to me. As mayor, I believe strongly that I have a role to stand beside NACA and the Black community in Newmarket as an ally, to help support and help do the hard work of dismantling anti-Black racism and creating a more welcoming community for Black people and Black youth. So it's been my pleasure to work with Jerisha, NACA, and others, and to learn so much more over the last number of years, to see the hard work that went into the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Task Force and their report that they delivered to our council, to learn so much through that process and the workshops that were involved in it, to work with NACA to establish their first permanent community center and home in the town of Newmarket, and to support youth scholarships that NACA provides throughout the community. These are just some of the ways that NACA has harnessed my leadership, the leadership of council, and the allies that exist within our community. We want to continue to do that hard work and support NACA going forward. And we believe that Black History Month and this reception is a good time to remind ourselves that we need to stay committed for the long run, and we need to be willing to do the hard work and to be committed to action so that true change can occur. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Hi, I'm Jim McSween, Chief of York Regional Police. On behalf of all of our members, I'd like to extend virtual greetings to everyone participating in the Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association's 4th Annual Black History Month celebration for 2022. Thank you for inviting me to take part for the continued partnership NACA has extended to our members. Your organization has worked hard to advance knowledge, diversity, and inclusion through a wide variety of programs and celebrations of the African Caribbean community in Newmarket. This adds strength to the rich cultural diversity of our region. YRP supports NACA's vision for a community that is strong, supportive, and connected, especially for Black youth. And we'll continue to advance our shared goal of building a community where everyone feels that they belong. I'd also like to acknowledge both the leadership of Jerisha and the collective efforts of all NACA members, organizers, and volunteers over the past 4 years. I applaud NACA's strong leaders who act as dedicated role models for Black youth in our community and are truly committed to helping our youth achieve their goals and aspirations. Your actions continue to speak louder than words. Thank you for leading by example. I think this year's theme, Get Up, Stand Up, There's Power in Unity, is very fitting. To me, it speaks to what community is all about, supporting each other, working together, and standing up for what's right. Please accept our very best wishes for your 4th Black History Month celebration. We look forward to many more future opportunities for friendship and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, MP Van Bynen, Deputy Premier Christine Elliott, Mayor Taylor, and Chief McSween. Thank you for showing up and showing out in keeping with this year's theme. It is now my pleasure to introduce Afiwi Groove School. It is based in Durham region. and was established in 2013. Their first ever African dance programs for children and adults promote positive self-esteem, confidence, and an active lifestyle, which has been so critical in this era of COVID and too many Zoom meetings. Now presenting Afui Grove School.
Baby, follow my command, like zombie. Go down on me, oh, with your coca body. Follow my command, like zombie. Go down on me, oh, with your coca body. Cause this your milky for front enough for me. Hold on for me, I no go to me corny. And if you're milky na fighty, I saw me to look. Baby, gonna waka waka when you enter Malicha. Baby, gonna will you give me sugar? Wala. Macho Mona Lisa, 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 Macho Mona Lisa. Macho Mona Lisa, Macho Mona Lisa. Girl, I'll be foolish if I don't let you indulge me. Your lips like poison. I'll take my chance with you. You're in denial. I'll show you I'm loyal. You want that bomb way down like tsunami or the Would you hold me down in the gonna waka waka when you enter Malicha. Baby, gonna will you give me sugar? Wala. Macho Mona Lisa, 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 Macho Mona Lisa.
Mama mwe isoti opo Upa wede di lame Yo tutalo Upa wede di lame Yo tutalo Upa wede di lame Yo tutalo Mama mwe isoti opo Upa wetu shiveli Yo tutalo Upa wetu shiveli Yo tutalo Upa wetu shiveli Yo tutalo Mama mwe isoti opo Upa weka mazoli Yo tutalo yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kapwi di fwe. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kapwi di fwe. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kakuwilo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kapwi di fwe. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kakuwilo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kapwi di fwe. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo kapwi di fwe. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo santi mouve. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Bagay ma yo tini bobo. Vini we bagay la. Sukwe bagay la bayo, sukwe bagay la puyo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Sukwe bagay la bayo, sukwe bagay la puyo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Upwali sukwe ye montwe yo pufwe igalo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Upwali sukwe ye montwe yo pufwe igalo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Sukwe bagay la bayo, sukwe bagay la puyo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Sukwe bagay la bayo, sukwe bagay la puyo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Upwali sukwe ye montwe yo pufwe igalo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Upwali sukwe ye montwe yo pufwe igalo. Mama karo sukwe bagay la bayo. Sukwe Tela menali balaluku kaluwale balbanana kasareo luna kasareo bambalina re. Tela menali afibai guvaluwale balbana leiko kasareo luna kasareo bambalina re. Tela menali aluku kaluwale balbana la kasareo luna kasareo bambalina.
absolutely stunning performance for the Afiwi dance group. I forgot to say dance. I said in the language of lyrics and drum beats and dance, of course. Brilliantly done. Next, we have Lorelia Crothers, who currently advocates for her community as a Ward 1 councillor in the town of East Gwillimbury. As a first-term councillor, Aurelia has established the town's very first diversity and inclusion advisory committee. Through the work of this committee, the town has adopted an inclusion charter, a multi-faith calendar, increased staff equity training, and had community flagpole erected at the Civic Center to enable the town to raise the Black History Month flag for the first time. Amazing. Prior to being elected to town council, Aurelia served as an elected public school trustee for 17 years. In 2016, in light of the ongoing anti-Black racism and other systemic issues at the school board, Lorelia stepped up and won election as chair of the board. Under her leadership, the board has aggressively worked to address equity concerns and improve public accountability. Lorelia.
Thank you for taking the time to be here today, to listen with an open heart and an open mind. I particularly want to thank NACA for the honor of allowing me to speak with you today. So why is a white woman speaking to you for Black History Month? Well, the theme NACA has chosen this year is harnessing allyship and leading. For those of you who know me, you know a bit about my journey, both as an ally and as a leader. But for those of you who don't, I hope my presentation today will give you a glimpse of why I'm here and why this matters to me. Well, I will make mistakes because I am still learning. I just ask for your understanding. Today, I want to talk about some of the people, particularly people of color, who are helping me to build an understanding of how to be a more effective ally. I hope that today I can give back by passing along to you what I am learning from them, because I was never on this journey by myself. It was only possible with the incredible support I had from the community. The words of Martin Luther King are so true. We cannot walk alone. It's often been said that allyship is not a destination, but a journey. We can't always pinpoint the exact moment in time when a personal journey begins. Often it's made up of many individual moments that nudge us towards the path we're intended to follow. My journey towards allyship probably started the first day I was elected to public office over 20 years ago. Although at the time, I didn't know how to use the influence that elected leadership gave me to be a better ally. And I'm sorry to say, it took many years and many nudges in the right direction before I'd even start to become the ally I needed to be. One of the most important nudges came when my phone rang in late 2016, and I spoke for the first time with someone who not only inspired and guided me for many years to come, but also pushed me towards maximizing my potential as an ally. Suleiman Ahmed is a passionate and effective advocate, a true role model when it comes to allyship. That day, I didn't know him or the importance of that phone call. Matter of fact, I've avoided his calls for a number of times because he wasn't a constituent in the area I served. But he insisted with a "just hear me out." You see, the school board, for which I'd been elected trustee for over a decade, was in the midst of a leadership crisis for how it was handling a number of racist incidents. And it was routinely on the front page of the Toronto Star for one scandal or another. I had personally given up on the gamesmanship needed to oust the current chair, and frankly didn't feel I had the personal strength to fight that fight again, nor did I even think the fight was winnable. But Suleiman was persistent. He let me know what was at stake for our Black and Muslim communities under the current leadership, and outlined how the only path forward was for me to seek the chair position. Whether I wanted to or not was irrelevant. He made me realize that the leadership that came with winning the chair election could bring about the change that I and the marginalized communities in our board had been wanting to see, and help give voice to those who were silenced under the current leadership. I won't get into details of what followed, but just leave you with this. He spoke to me with passion. He outlined what was at stake. He described the potential that he saw in my leadership, and he offered support. In the end, he won me over. This is the first of 5 ideas on allyship I want to share with you today. This one is about what you can do to help build effective allies when speaking with people in a leadership position. Be insistent, be passionate, and most of all, offer support. Support is an essential ingredient, whether you're looking to build an ally or are you looking to be a better ally yourself? Because we cannot walk alone. You see, Steelpan didn't just leave it there for me to walk alone. He continued to call, to push me, to help me problem solve when things got difficult. And after I successfully won the election as chair, he continued to offer his behind-the-scenes support, as well as his gratitude and demonstration of the difference I was making. He inspired me to continue the work, even when it got hard. And it got really hard. But we'll get to that in a minute. Shortly after I became chair of the school board, I was standing out in front of one of our schools after a community meeting, debating with Charlene Grant and Garth Bob, two people who have also pushed and inspired me, and who I have come to have the utmost respect for. But on that evening, we barely knew each other. On the sidewalk that night, Charlene was explaining to me what needed to happen for our Black children to feel safer in our schools. But I really wasn't getting her urgency. There was so much going on. My first week as chair of one of the largest school boards in Ontario. We were currently under review by the Ministry of Education, not only for how we were handling issues of racism, but a whole host of other problems I had inherited. I was juggling so many balls, I just couldn't catch the one she was throwing. That's when Garth said something that was so simple, yet so deep, it sticks with me to this day. He turned to his wife and said of me, "What do you expect? She's just a white woman from East Gwillimbury." It wasn't said as an insult, but as a statement of fact, identifying the problem very succinctly so that we could find a solution and move forward. I also took it as a challenge to be better than just a product of my surroundings. The problem he identified was that my whole life experience was living in a community that up until then had been 96% white, according to the latest census. The solution was that I needed to understand their lived experiences to be able to catch that ball she was throwing. This is the second idea on building effective allies I want to share, and probably one of the most important. Meet people where they are at, but don't leave them there. Garth and Charlene met me where I was at on my journey and helped move me forward. We are all at a different place on the path towards equity. If we jump too far ahead of where people are at, it's very hard to bring them along, and everyone just gets frustrated, which was the case here. I just wasn't where Charlene needed me to be on my journey, and she was too far ahead for me to even see where she was going. By Garth pointing that out, we were able to find a solution and move ahead together. That night, and for months to follow, as I worked to increase my own knowledge and understanding, Charlene and Garth met me where I was at, despite how frustrating it must have been for them. While it wasn't on them to have to educate me, they did because they saw that the effort would yield real results for their community. They told me painful stories. They introduced me to other members of their community who shared their stories with me as well. I will forever be grateful for this, and how that, along with my own work, propelled me forward on my journey to be a more effective ally. I listened, I asked questions, and together we figured out what they needed and what was possible. Never be afraid to share your stories. Sometimes we don't even know what we don't know, and knowing makes us more effective allies. Meeting people where they are at and moving them forward must become the work of public institutions as well. One of the changes we brought forward while I was chair of the school board was initiating compulsory human rights and equity training for all trustees and senior staff. Trained professionals took on the job of educating those who needed a better understanding of equity and inclusion. The gaps were often staggering, and I experienced firsthand the frustration that Charlene and Garth must have felt dealing with someone who, at the time, just didn't get it. Fast forward a minute to my first year on council. We've been successful in establishing the town's first Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, and one of the first things the committee wanted to do was to start raising community flags as a visual symbol of the town's commitment to inclusivity. It was November, and I was walking in the Santa Claus parade with one of my colleagues. I was endeavoring to do the soft sell to try and get their support for the flag raising initiative, when they turned to me and said, "You know, Laura Lee, I just want to know, when do we get to celebrate white culture?" For one of the first times in my life, I was actually speechless as I looked around the whiteness of the celebration surrounding me. but it was a reminder of where they were at on their journey. They weren't even at a point where they could see the Eurocentric nature of our whole society, let alone want to make the effort to make it a change. Rather than being upset or angry, I thought, wow, I guess I've got a lot of work to do here. Although being angry might have been justified in this case, it would not have helped them increase their understanding. It would have likely shut down their ability to listen, learn, and progress on their own journey. Another important nudge on my learning journey came from none other than Desmond Cole. Now, if you know him, you'll know it was a little bit more than a nudge. Desmond showed up at one of our school board meetings during that tumultuous time when I was the chair who was desperately trying to right this huge ship that was drifting dangerously off course. Desmond, through his trademark disruption, managed to shut down the meeting and stop the business of the board, highlighting the direness of our current situation. I met with him and tried to explain how things are done, the forms that needed to be filled out and submitted, the policies, the procedures that must be followed. His response to me changed my outlook on how our institutions are run. He said to me, "That might be how you do it, but this is how we do it." It made me realize that the colonial nature of how our public institutions are set up continue to marginalize certain voices. His bold tactics disrupted our norms long enough for other voices to be heard. That night, after watching it all unfold again on the evening news, I had a call from a Black advocate in Toronto, a former trustee who I'd never met or spoken with before, but who decided at 11:30 at night, after the night I had just had, I probably wasn't sleeping anyways. Now, like you, I usually don't pick up the phone from strangers at that time of night, and I'm really not sure why I did, but I did, and I'm certainly glad I did. The call was so incredibly supportive and empowering. I was at one of my lowest points as a leader, who knew what needed to be done, but was up against so many roadblocks, I couldn't give the community what they needed, even with the influence that my position as chair of the school board gave me. I was feeling hopeless and overwhelmed from the stress of it all. But through the power of his words, he lifted me up and helped me continue going in the right direction. I'm not sure that he ever knew what a difference that one call made. Desmond Cole shutting down our board meeting, the powerful voices of Black mothers ringing out in our boardroom, along with that supportive late night call, gave me the strength to do what had to be done next. The next morning, I called our senior staff into the director's office. Now, you have to understand that this is completely against our norms. Meetings with senior staff were arranged through secretaries and executive assistants booked well in advance, and certainly not at the call of the chair. I wasn't even sure that they would show up. But I pulled on my boots and I marched into that office with a plan and a feeling of strength behind me that I was not leaving until that plan was agreed to. I knew if I didn't disrupt the way things were being done now after that incredible actions of the community the night before, I would be accepting status quo and progress would not be possible. I know from conversations afterwards that while our staff were so relieved to finally have a concrete plan to address the tremendous issues that were plaguing our board, some were also scared at the repercussions I would face for so boldly usurping our director. I'll admit I was scared too based on previous personal attacks, but I just kept thinking about the stories I'd heard from parents about what they and their children had experienced in our board, and I knew there was so much more at stake and that this was the only way forward. Whether I was scared or not was irrelevant. The extreme tactics employed by Desmond Cole were effective. Through the important voices he allowed to be heard, my colleagues saw real consequences for their action and inaction, and it opened them up to the need for change. I don't recommend this as a first resort, but given the resistance the Black community was experiencing, disruption was the only way to have their voices heard, and in the end, it did have the intended impact. I'm not calling out disrupting public meetings as a strategy for building allies, but I'm asking you to think, especially those who are listening who are white, about what we can do to create space for other voices to be heard without them having to resort to shutting down public meetings. Strategy number 3, help to create space for marginalized voices to be heard. This is always an effective strategy for allyship. At the school board, this involved bringing back the public forum at the beginning of board meetings, allowing anyone who wanted to be heard to have the microphone for a set amount of time. It also meant, as chair, going out to every community in the board and sitting down with their leaders to hear their concerns. I also set up public meetings in local high schools to meet with parents in their own community, to answer their questions and hear their thoughts, ideas, and concerns. The theme of not being heard was loud and clear. After these sessions, we brought back the Every Student Counts survey to help build our understanding of what students were experiencing. And we launched working groups to address issues and advise the board on anti-Black racism, classism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia. People had a place to make their voices heard, and with that, we could build understanding and real change was possible. I want to be clear, I did not do this work alone. It took the support of staff, my colleagues, and the community to make change happen. You cannot walk alone. We all have dreams and visions of where we could and should be as a society. And sometimes the gap between the vision and reality is startling. So it's important to remember that small steps count too. That's why some of the first things we did when I was chair of the school board during those troubling times were small yet symbolic. Land acknowledgements, flag raisings, Cultural Heritage Month recognitions, a formal apology, our first Ring of Peace rally. Small actions, but important symbols that we were listening and open to change. For some stakeholders, these weren't small actions. These people were at an earlier place on their equity journey and were openly hostile to even these small actions. Others farther along the path thought these actions were too small. But I knew it was important to do the small things alongside the bigger things which would take more time for the community to see results from. It was also important to build buy-in from our late adopters on the small things before expecting them to welcome larger change. This is the fourth idea on effective allyship I want to share with you. Sometimes you have to start small. Small wins help pave the way for bigger actions later. Which brings me to being elected as a town councillor in that same small town I referred to earlier, the town that has historically been 96% white, but was now changing rapidly with huge new subdivisions bringing in a diverse group of new residents every day. From day one, I lobbied to establish the town's first Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee. With the support of Mayor and Council, a powerful message was sent that the town values equity and inclusion with the establishment of this group. The members of the committee brought forward many great initiatives, some eagerly accepted by Council, others not so much. After just over a year of the committee's operation, our senior staff realized the amount of work that needed to be done in this area and our current lack of in-house expertise. In response, they hired the most fantastic person to take on a role that would include equity, diversity, and inclusion. Meeta Gandhi would be the first woman of color in a senior role in our town. This is already changing how things are done in East Gwillimbury. I credit the work of our committee for opening the eyes of town staff to the importance of this work, and to our senior staff for working quickly to address this when an in-house option wasn't available. No longer do I have to be the lone champion on equity issues at the table. We now have a leader on the inside. This year, we not only raised the Pan-African flag for Black History Month for the second year in a row, but as a town, we are actively collaborating with NACA on a number of events this month. This would not have been possible without the small steps that took place over the previous years. It is my hope that with Meeta's leadership, we will see an even bigger Black History Month celebration in East Gwillimbury once we can gather together again. This is a final idea on allyship I will leave with you today. You don't have to do it all yourself. Gather like-minded people around you and work to build systems that will lead to real change. Remember, we cannot walk alone. I want to end by recapping the 5 ideas I shared with you today about allyship. Whether you're looking to build a more effective ally in a person in a leadership role, or you're looking to be a more effective ally yourself, these strategies are the things that help me on my journey. Be insistent and offer support. Meet people where they are at and help them move forward. Create space for marginalized voices to be heard. Start small, but dream big. And finally, build systems that lead to real change. As someone who has held many leadership roles, I know that with public office comes great responsibility, but also the ability to effect real change for large numbers of people. And that is why I want to leave you with this closing thought. In a year where we'll see not only a provincial election, but municipal and school board elections as well. We need more people from racialized communities and their allies to run for public office. Remember, who you vote for matters. Even more so, who you come out and support during the election matters. Who you encourage to run for public office also matters. It's often said that good people don't want to run for political office, but we need good people in public office to effect change. So we must find those good people, encourage them to run, and support them when they do run. Voting alone isn't enough. It's going to take all of our support through the whole election process for a whole group of great people to be elected to lead us forward. Because in the words of Martin Luther King, we cannot walk alone. Thank you.
So much, Councillor Crothers, for your candidness and for your allyship and for your grace. I'd now like to turn it over to Jerisha.
Wow, wow, wow. That was packed with, there was a lot there to unpack in terms of allyship, in terms of the challenges faced when doing allyship, in terms of the support needed when doing allyship, in terms of just being in those spaces, becoming disruptors and challenging the status quo. It takes courage, it takes a lot of gut, and as our keynote speaker, Laura Lee, said, support is needed. It doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, we all have a collective responsibility. And I believe there is space for all of us. I think without the unity, without the allyship, without the disruption, there can be no change. And so I think those are some really good points that were shared about how you can harness the people around you, how you can support the people around you, how you can look out for those people around you and push them into those positions of leadership to make change. So I hope that we did walk away from this keynote feeling that we must take action, that we can take action. And I just want to be clear that systemic discrimination, systemic anti-Black racism, white supremacy, whatever the names are, it's all violence. And if we think about it, we're inflicting violence in groups of individuals on a daily basis. And this is not something that anyone should be okay with. So I urge all of us, whether we're in leadership or whether we're leading a town, a region, whether we're just leading our families, have those conversations. I think what she mentioned was that you can start small. I think conversations with your children, with your family, is a good way to start small. So I think I was just caught up there in a lot of the points from the keynote, but I'm here to present awards and presentations. There are a lot of people. There's a lot of people in our community that are showing us a lot of support and a lot of giving us a lot of push forward in our work. And time would not permit in this reception today to recognize everyone. And so the Black History Month Committee has selected a few of the individuals this year that we are going to recognize for their work, for their allyship, for their bold their courageousness, because NACA, we feel it's critical. It is important, and we want to recognize folks that are doing the work. We want to do that. And so I know there's a lot of great people on this call who are helping to push us forward. You often don't see them. They're in the background. So let's start with the first one. Mayor John Taylor. NACA wants to recognize today Mayor John Taylor for his allyship and equity-centered leadership. We cannot disrupt inequities if we don't understand our relationship to them. Luis Santiago. Mayor John Taylor is willing to ask tough questions, challenge the status quo when it isn't working, and call out long-standing biases, even when it's uncomfortable. And I will share a story or an example before moving on. As you know, Newmarket has the Dismantling Anti-Black Racism Task Force, and I am chairing that task force. And we delivered a presentation to council in December. And when that presentation was being delivered and there were some comments after the presentation, I recall a comment from our mayor that I shall not soon forget. And if you know council chambers and you know our council, it's an all-white council. And after that presentation, Mayor John Taylor said, "It is not lost on me that you, as a Black person, is presented on anti-Black racism to an all-white council, and that the walls in this room is decorated with folks who have gone before who are all white." For me, in that moment, in that room, was an example of speaking up and saying something that makes everyone uncomfortable. And so that's the example that I want to share, among many others. So Mayor John Taylor understands, for me, in that moment, his relationship to inequities. And that was a call out on white privilege in that moment. In 2020, Mayor Taylor stated that it is critically important to not just increase dialogue, but also financial support for Black-led, Black-serving organizations. Through the Mayor's Charity Golf Tournament, which has provided scholarships to area high schools for years, Mayor Taylor commits $5,000 annually. This commitment to change helps fuel the NACA Scholarship Program, which supports post-secondary education for Black students in York Region each year. Through bold leadership, Mayor Taylor sets a path for other leaders to follow. It was under his administration that Newmarket became the first municipality in York Region to open a Black-led, Black-serving community space. The Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association recognizes Mayor John Taylor for his allyship and equity-centered leadership in our community. The next person that we'd like to recognize today, and we'll make some appointments for you to pick up your accolades at the office, but I want to introduce you to Wasim Jara. And Wasim is being recognized for allyship and building equitable communities. I don't think you ever stop giving. I really don't. I think it's an ongoing process. And it's not just about being able to write a check. It's being able to touch somebody's life. Oprah Winfrey. Wasim Jara never stops giving. He is personally committed to changing lives. And he not only writes checks, he sits on boards and committees and asks tough questions and actively looks for spaces in our community to transform. I am telling you, he does. He looks actively for spaces to transform. The Wasim Jara Business Excellence Award is given to graduating students who are working to pursue post-secondary education and who have demonstrated excellence in business and entrepreneurship studies. This award is offered to graduating Black students in York Region annually. Wasim Jara has worked to build inclusive spaces in Newmarket by supporting various initiatives that focus on youth in the NACA community. He sponsored the first ever Lego sculpture workshop for Black youth. NACA Black History Month Youth Contest and Annual Scholarship Program. The Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association recognizes Wasim Jara for exemplifying excellence in allyship and building equitable communities. Congratulations, Wasim, and thank you for your work. The next person that we want to recognize is Patrick Archibald for allyship, equity, and inclusion. What's important for my daughter to know is that if you are fortunate to have opportunity, it is your duty to make sure that other people have those opportunities as well. And that's from Kamala Harris. Patrick Archibald models the change he wants to see in the world. He, along with his team at RightsLine, created the RightsLine Computer Science Award, which is a $15,000 to $20,000, 3 to 4 year commitment to a graduating Black student in York Region pursuing post-secondary degree in technology or computer science. A step in the right direction for a more inclusive and diverse future. Patrick Archibald has established a meaningful working relationship with NACA, and must I add, when our space is more open and you come, if you weren't at the open house, or if you did and you visited our library, Patrick Archibald did the walls in our new community space. He took the time and he came in and he did our library walls. So he's not just writing checks. Just wanted to use that as another example. The RightsLine Scholarship Fund is both action and commitment to transform lives and build equitable communities. The Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association recognizes RightsLine for their allyship and contribution to building equitable and inclusive spaces. Congratulations, Patrick and RightsLine. So now this brings us to our community awards. So each year we recognize a community member or an organization. And like I said, there's a lot of great people doing a lot of good work in this town. And you may not see them because we're all behind our computers. But this year we wanted to recognize, I think our Black History Month committee wanted to recognize Gavin Gunter for the community award. The Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association recognizes Gavin Gunter for his dedicated service to the organization since 2019. As a volunteer photographer, Gavin has captured and curated some of the most memorable moments and milestones in the organization's short history. We thank Gavin for his immense contribution in helping to curate the African Black Caribbean presence in Newmarket. Gavin is the recipient of NACA's 2022 Community Award and is being recognized for his excellence in community service. Congratulations, Gavin. And congratulations to everyone being recognized. And
Congratulations to
thank
all
you,
our
and
award.
over to you.
Thank you, Jerisha. Thank you, and congratulations to all our awardees. Congratulations to Asim, to Gavin, to Patrick. Congratulations to the mayor, and thank you for being a steadfast ally of our community now and in the future. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you all Jayla Hall with the performance Grayscale. Jayla is an entrepreneur, a digital painter, and a spoken word artist. Her art, poetry, and overall discussions commonly speak to topics like Blackness, activism, femininity, and faith in Christ, and as well as mental health. Her digital art studio is called The Creator House, where she sells and curates digital art pieces, mainly inspired by personal and communal experience. Jayla Hall with Grayscale.
I want to know what this whole allyship thing is. Could the reason why we're still connected to this Bluetooth slave trade be because we want to be safe in it? The connection is still there, even if we can't see it. What does it mean to be an asset to Blackness? What does it mean to be a cousin to a race, culture, or ethnicity? Do Black folks even have ethnic cousins, or can we just be them? What is our perception of unity? I wonder if it's even necessary to mix the color palette till it turns black with a lighter kind of shade. Some might call it a grayscale. When Black bodies were broken and we begged, wondering what it meant to give myself as the body I was born in tags of perception on a scroll past post falsely marked with a double tap. And what the world called spice became tasteless on its handstands, EURO-centric like the currency they sold tinted bodies with. Fundamentally. Because they said it was necessary. I got a strip from the barcode they placed on my dark skin, approached by scammers, their scanners seeking answers about my origin, knowing that its black and white image would be filled with reflections, but no colors like Rubens' vase, hoping those zeros and ones making binary codes of man-made and forced do's and don'ts would have a holy disruption before new numbers fill the gaps, and I run for the healing as my unborn son sings Maranatha. Given a chance, no rapping though. Gotta raise these bars anyway. Instead of seeking real wisdom, some of us would rather have our hearts discover themselves. Must we do so? Trying to please massa our way into the vision, everything becoming a mix of purple ashes painted by red and blue brushes, whether they from 12 or missing baby daddies for 13 birthdays overdue. The milk expired and he never came home for some of us. How we finna move from that? Are we gonna have to beg for an okay from the pole? Or is ally sufficiency gonna be the death of instability, building the dome within an institution, instantly industrializing the intersectionality of our race? We all need different band-aids because bullet wounds ain't the only wounds we need to tend to. Who am I, if not Blackness constructed? If justice for my Black body means stripping it of its label, whether we see difference behind shade scale, then do I really want freedom? What will my foundation be if I stop marching? If we are satisfied in a social mold that gave our bodies barcodes, are we really on a stable foundation if we're tossed and turned like the waves our grandmothers waded in? Because we got problems. Aren't there deeper seas than we want to admit? Fighting this racial race with interracial division, expecting the checkered flag to reciprocate, are we really gonna win like that? See, I want to see if going grayscale means blindness to color, or is it to know that the righteous are never self-sufficient? Has my Blackness been the only thing colonized? Is it Black sufficiency that will be the death for me? Was that life never meant for me on ships they sent for me? To send and see the peace, to find a destiny they wrote in ink called morality. It was a man-made paradigm of the endless essence of fulfillment endlessly. Drowning in these rivers now relentlessly because the allies couldn't teach my Black body to swim. Left to see what this will all become when it's all said and done. I want to wake up. Meanwhile, others cancel a condescending nature with psychological correction. Do we realize allyship means self-emancipation, having to portray the advancements of time with that infection between that intersection, swearing we only scratching the surface, a rhythm stashed in the attic, broken as if we are a complex math lesson, looking at our purple bruises. Ego as wide as the snow her feet caress below. Her footprints stamping the squares that mark the number of every person she ever touched with the words, I'm just as human as you. And there were no squares on the soles of her shoes, cause that's something the world been new. 2020 been a ride on the scale of songs we wrote with mixed match notes, yet we still perform a full crescendo, not knowing who the conductor is. Anti-diminuendo, no diminishing the subject any longer, cause it's our mission. Would we still see the purple bruises if the color was gray? Must I see in gray to be free? And I ain't talking about that I don't need you mentality, because I wasn't made to be built like that. What's best for everybody, and how do we know? Is this a Me Too movement too universal for my body to be healed? Ain't no film, this is real, a documentary, if you will. Will allyship mean self-ambition for the dough will end, or will we still just be coveting together? Dancing and shaking the frame like Gambino been saying. Understanding that this is in America too. Sis, you know the story was written for you. The call yellow like a lightning bolt. A sound that electrified your soul that you knew all too well, westing in it for the 16th year of your being without fear that it would shout for you again. The insulator echoes of that blue and purple dream you rose from the surface of, you rested on the shore of it. The sounds threatening to shock again, beckoning as if the whip cracked right in front of you, begging for you once more. The rivers your body was meant to wade in, fade in, as music left mental staining of a heartbreak you've had before. The beat faded, but it was still there. Your skin a burnt orange kind of color with the saturation turned down. Not that it mattered until you stepped out in a crowd, because as was everyone in your household, and the red ribbons met you. You'd feared they'd spill out before, whether they were from your body, your mind, or your soul. Brother, you watched too. Endangering the wisdom with apprehension as you walk that same snow. Green ideas flooding insidious, it ain't the film, but you gotta learn that stubbornness precipitates illiterate leadership. To break generational cycles takes sacrifice. Coming up from your position to be on the come up, because age is labeled as a title and not a form of character, yet your pop stay 36 and still drinks from a sippy cup, trying to tell our sleeping children to wake up. You still see the boy he used to be. The life before the green. Copping a single combo and you loving it like you Mickey D's. Although you keep it low key, you ain't fooling nobody, because deep down you want out. Wake up. Will the allies have to be our alarm clock for you to realize that something has to break every chain like Tasha? It's turning gray, or you turn like parabolic. Can we function like this? And if we take on this war in the gray, what is our munition, ally? What is your position, ally? What is the method to your transition, ally? Are you the answer, ally? Do you need supervision, ally? Can you handle this?
Thank you, Jayla. The chat is correct. That was spectacular. I don't really actually think anything else needs to be said. I'm just going to let that sit on our audience. I'd like to introduce our board member, Pauline Jones.
Hello. My name is Pauline Jones, and I'm a board member with NACA. I'm actually still floored by some of the poetry from Jayla. You know, for such a young person, she has an old soul and she reflects everything as we older people think about, but she says it with such finesse and in such thought-provoking way. What can I say? Thank you, Jayla. So I'd like to express gratitude on behalf of NACA for everyone being here, our dignitaries, our audience. I noticed that there were people as far away as Portugal. Let me rephrase that. They speak Portuguese, but they're actually from Brazil. So bon dia. And I also want to thank you for spending the time with us. You could do it. You could do anything else, but you're doing it with us this morning. Thank you. Get up, stand up. There is power in unity. There is something so profound in those words that no wonder it feels like a joyful call to action. However, it's not an action that can only be visible or should only be visible around Black History Month. In fact, Black History Month is a joyful reflection of why the call to action is imperative. It is a means to rally and inspire our community to push forward for change. All our structures After all, our structures of racism, and specifically anti-Black racism, doesn't take a holiday. The call to speak out loudly and act must manifest the most intentional of actions. Performative reactions are disingenuous. We cannot just appear to be doing the work it means to be an ally. To do better, we must understand that real accountability is when individual responsibility meets collaborative action. Lean into and educate yourself. Address the uncomfortable conversations, but also make yourself comfortable with those conversations. Stand for the cause of dismantling anti-Black racism, along with those who are equity denied. This is the essence of allyship. As we continue to experience this pandemic and the fallout that is affecting the most marginalized of people, economically, socially, and politically, racial justice cannot be made to take a back seat. In fact, it is crucial that we make it front and center, because as we have seen, those bodies that are perceived as different become the scapegoat. Dismantling anti-Black racism requires actions, accountability, and bold leadership. It also requires participation and support to amplify equity-denied voices. And this is the essence of bold leadership. I hope that you will join us on February the 15th at 7 o'clock. There is a moderated panel discussion about harnessing allyship and leadership. The moderator and the participants are examples of those who are actually doing the work to disrupt injustices and inequities. You will hear Karen Wheatley, our moderator, along with Beatrice Anane Bediako, Melissa McCletchie, and our own local community member, Molly Coles-Ton. Please take the time to register. Visit newmarket.ca/Black History. So now, there are so many people to thank for today's event. Much gratitude to the Black History Month team that worked hard to make not only today happen, but the many events in February. Those from the town of Newmarket, the board members, and the volunteers from NACA. In addition, our newest team members from the town of East Gwillimbury. My gratitude to Lena Singh, who volunteered on the Black History Committee. Thank you all for your diligence and commitment. NACA also thanks today's participants. Firstly, our chairperson, Jerisha Grant Hall, for her leadership and support. Janice Luttrell for the moving land acknowledgement. She is our vice chair. Matthew Palomino, our youth director on the NACA board. I have to tell you, Matthew, as our master ceremonies, your personable approach and sense of humor made everyone feel welcome and connected. Elder Lee Miller for grounding us with the libation ceremony. We definitely are thankful for the encouraging messages from our dignitaries, Tony Van Bynen, MP, Christine Elliott, MPP, our mayor, John Taylor, Newmarket, and our chief of police with the York Regional Police, Chief McSween. Thank you. Congratulations goes to those recognized for their unwavering support of NACA's vision. You are truly the best of and an inspiration to our Newmarket community. Thank you, Mayor John Taylor, Wasim Jara, Patrick Arkeveld of Wrightsline, and Gavin Gunter. To our keynote speaker, Laura Lee Carruthers. Wow, you exemplify bold leadership. Your passion to create change made you recognize where you were on your allyship journey. You were not afraid to learn, to listen, to understand a different perspective, to be uncomfortable, and to bring others along. You have certainly given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much. We're also thankful for the entertainment provided by the Enchanting Steelpan, with the kind of music that moves your soul and your body. I am absolutely amazed by Keisha Wendt, her amazing rendition of the Canadian and Black anthems. These are not easy songs to sing, but they certainly sent shivers down my back. A Thiwi groove, dance school and drumming, again, spiritually moving. There is nothing like the drumming that can move your soul. And you know, Jayla Hall, for her thought-provoking spoken word, she is truly a wise soul. What better way to thank our business professionals than to visit the Ujamaa Marketplace throughout the month of February until the 28th? So the virtual marketplace you can access also through our link, newmarket.ca, Black History. And let me tell you, Black-owned business is the engine of economic empowerment for our community. Please, please support. In closing, we at the Newmarket African Caribbean Canadian Association, NACA, want you to be mindful of your allyship. Be intentional. Always recognize which voices are missing from the table and seek out and amplify those equity denied voices. And finally, I leave you with this. If you believe in a cause, be willing to stand up for that cause with 1 million people or by yourself. And now let's listen to the sounds of the Enchanting Steel Band. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline.
Jamming.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Hear the people singing, hear the people crying. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let them all pass, all the dirty remarks. There is one question I really want to ask. A pity on those whose chances grow thinner. There is no hiding place from the Father of creation. Hear the people singing, hear the people crying. Let's get together and feel on as it was in the beginning. So shall it be in the end. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. One more thing, let's get together to fight this holy Armageddon. So when the man comes, there will be no doom. A pity on those whose chances grow thinner. There is no hiding place from the Father of creation. Yet the people singing, one heart. Let's get together and feel up. I'm speaking to mankind. One heart. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. All right, taking you back across the pond. I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. Well, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl. Talking about my girl. I've got so much honey, the bees envy me. I've got a sweeter song to sing than any birds in the trees. Well, I guess you say what can make me feel this way, my girl. Talking about my girl. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Woo. I don't need no money, fortune or fame. I've got all the riches, baby, that one man could claim. talking about my girl, talking about my girl, talking about my girl, my girl.
Coming everyone, and have a good day.